嗨，大家好，我叫高健，我学中文学了10年了。那以前是中文学生，也是中文老师。那我现在在 Skritter 工作。So my name is Jake, and I've been studying Chinese for maybe 10 years now. And in addition to being a student, I was a teacher. I did a master's degree in Taiwan for teaching Chinese as a second language. And Skritter is the only way that I was able to take a master's level written Chinese exam that was 3 hours long. And I think I made like one mistake.
大家好，我是 Gwilym. I'm studying Chinese and I'm also a video editor for Skritter. And the way I used Skritter when I was first learning Chinese was to successfully learn 300 characters in a day. I needed to pass this test, and the only way I could do it in a smart way in such a short amount of time was to use the Skritter app.
Today, we want to talk to you a little bit about how Skritter can be used both from the student perspective and from the teacher perspective to really maximize your character learning potential.
So when I first started learning Chinese, I already knew a few of the words, but I had no idea how to write any characters. And on my first day of Chinese school, I was required to learn 300 characters. So I Googled the best way to learn characters, and then I came across Skritter on these Chinese forums. And the first list I studied was our Skritter 101 list, and I found that very helpful because it gradually teaches you the building blocks of Chinese, the radicals or components, and then it would show you characters that included those components so you could see it in context. And so by the end of knowing that list, I had a good foundation of how the Chinese language is built, and also some tools to learn new characters by creating mnemonics or little stories to help you remember all of these building blocks.
Learning building blocks and radicals is really important because this is how characters are formed. Some of them are just pictures, but oftentimes today it's a combination of two things. And so when you have the ability to dig deeper, if a character is troubling you a little bit, you can break them down, you can understand how they put together, and then that helps you remember them a lot more long term.
And when you first start learning Chinese, in fact, the reason maybe you wanted to learn Chinese is because it's so difficult and daunting. You hear that there are many thousands of characters, but actually you'll find that there are many recurring components. Maybe Jake, you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the Kangxi dictionary composed of 214 radicals, and oftentimes this is used to look up characters, but they're also like some of the critical building blocks that characters are built on. And when you start learning those and you start learning other components that start appearing, you'll realize that like getting to 10,000 characters is, of course, that's a huge challenge. But getting to 1,000 characters, getting to 2,000 characters is not that bad because you start taking things that you've learned and applying them in new ways to new characters and just unlocking more and more. Yeah, so oftentimes when you look at some other applications that might be in the Chinese language learning space, they're to be frank about it, they're tracing applications. They show you the stroke order, and that's very helpful. But beyond that, there's no opportunity for you to use your brain to think about what you're trying to do. You're just basically processing the information you see on the screen and tracing it. With Skritter, we do that, and we call that teaching mode, where we'll teach you the stroke order for the character. But once you start getting into the learning process, once you start using the spaced repetition system, we like to actually use active recall. And what that means is we're presenting you with a blank canvas, and we're giving you a few hints about what we want you to write. And then you actually have to think about it and write it down. And what this does is help your muscle memory. It helps train kind of your memory in general so that these things can not just be short term, I remember them for today, for today's quiz, but more long term where a month from now, a year from now, you're reading a book, you need to write a card to a friend, you need to send a message, and you can do this because you've spent the time actually training yourself to be able to write these things on command whenever you want. So in an age of texting and just being able to open up your phone and write the pinyin, the importance here to still knowing how to write characters is because every single bit of research that's out there would suggest that there is a very strong, deep connection between the physical writing of the character and the remembering of it. So being able to write it, being able to break it down, understand it in that way helps you to read it, it helps you to recall it, and that's going to help just commit it to long-term memory even faster.
Yeah, and speaking for myself, when I put the effort, the extra 5 or 10 minutes that it takes to learn a character, both writing, I found that even though if you don't practice, you might forget the writing, you'll never forget how to read it or the tone because you put that initial effort in. Whereas if you didn't bother learning the character, how to write it, you might forget it much quicker.
that's actually a common occurrence for native speakers too. It's called 提笔忘字, right? They have an expression, and this is to pick up your pen and forget what you're writing. And that's okay because knowing it, right, you like structurally you can kind of picture it in your mind. And so when you do pick up your phone and you do type the pinyin in, which is arguably way more convenient, you're going to be able to select the appropriate character and not make mistakes that way because you have written it before. It's in your brain. You just had a little fart, brain fart, and you forgot it, and no big deal.
And another great thing, you might think you don't have much time in your busy day, but there's so much grey time, maybe waiting between class or commuting or going to the toilet. There's actually a Chinese phrase which is something like, you can learn on the horse, on the pillow, and on the toilet.
I think what Gwilym is referring to is 枕上,马上,侧上.
Exactly.
So if you're in a Chinese course and you're taking classes, there are probably two things that come with this. One, a textbook, something to use to study with, grammar patterns, vocabulary, dialogues, etc. The other thing that often comes up in Chinese classes is 听写. And what this is literally listen and write. And this is a daily exam where your teacher will give you vocabulary items and you have to write them down. And you have to get them right, otherwise your grade goes down. Now with Skritter, if you're doing these reviews every single day, you are going to get 100% on every single 听写 ever. Like, okay, maybe not 100%, you will be the classmate that everyone envies. And that's because we work very hard to make sure that we have textbooks ready and available for you to use immediately. So you come into the app, you find your textbook, chances are we've got it. If we don't, send us an email because we're gonna try and get it in there for you. But really, we are the ultimate study companion. We have the words that you need. You don't need to make the flashcard for it. You can just download it, find your list, and start studying right away.
So for me personally, when I started, I got given these textbooks, and I was delighted to see that they are already in the app, and they were broken down in chapter by chapter. So all I had to do was slowly go through and add the words as I came across them in class.
So I've used Skritter both in the classroom as a student and as a teacher. And one thing that I noticed as a teacher was that the students that did take the time to add the textbook and do this daily, they were always ahead of the game. They knew the characters, they could read the characters, they could pick up new characters faster, and it was very clear who was putting in the daily effort. And this was something that we did as an extra credit in my program. I didn't want to force people, not everyone has access to technology, and that's unfortunate. So we did it as extra credit, and when I did this, when I look at the stats, it wasn't that these people were spending hours a day. Really, realistically, it was students taking 10, 15 minutes of focused study, and they were definitely seeing results. And as a teacher, I noticed it instantly.
And that really is the core of any learning, especially with Skritter or learning Chinese. It's just getting into a habitual action of doing it daily. You don't have to spend hours doing it, but with Skritter, you can focus on doing it in a smart way. So you only learn the characters that you're going to forget or the characters that you need most.
I think once you're outside of the classroom, that daily routine of being forced to have something like a 听写 or go to class and learn things and follow up with dialogues and learn new grammar patterns, that kind of fades away and it's all on you. And Skritter is a great way of kind of maintaining your language. We have, in addition to having so many textbooks lists, we also have a lot of high-frequency vocabulary lists. We have all the HSK 1 through 6 lists. For Taiwanese students, people studying in Taiwan, we have the TOCFL lists. And these really allow you, to just review over time and make sure that these things that you've worked so hard studying don't fade away. You don't lose them. You can retain them, and then you can be reading them, outside of the classroom. Additionally, Skritter offers the ability for students to create custom lists. So if you're not finding something that you need, if you don't have a textbook, if you just want to be more specific, I used to study a lot of manhua, like anime that was translated into Chinese, and I would create my own vocabulary list to help me kind of unlock those books, especially if they were a series, right? And more importantly, when you did kind of encounter something that you were maybe struggling with or something new in the language, outside of a textbook, things are not so clearly defined. But being able to look it up on MDGB or look it up on Hanping or look it up on Pleco, we work very closely with some other applications to make that possible. So you can either add some things into your own custom lists, or if you're studying in Skritter and we don't have enough information for you, you can go get more by opening up these apps that you probably already have on your phone. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Gwilym and I really hope that you enjoyed it. And hopefully you find these tips and kind of tricks and a little bit of our own kind of background with Skritter very useful. If you are using Skritter and seeing huge level up moments, let us know in the comments below. You know, if there's something that you really love about Skritter that we might have missed, be sure to let us know, and thanks for watching.
And if you've not used Skritter before, you can go ahead and check out our website where you can sign up for a free 7-day trial and start your path towards Chinese mastery.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, well done, guys.
Yeah.